Hey, welcome back. Talking about softcover books today. I've had a lot of requests of how do I quote for a perfect bound book or paperback book or softcover book, whatever suits your fancy. And also when to decide to do offset or digital. So I'm gonna try and cover some of those today in one video. It's a lot of stuff. I hope I don't miss anything. You gotta check this out. My wife is so talented. She made me a bikini. It's for my face. Check it out. Okay, so overwhelmingly, the most amount of books we do are perfect bound books. And that's because of our customers and what they want. So perfect bound books are inexpensive and durable and they're fast. You know, that's why people want them. And soft cover books that are printed digitally are already printed in order. So that means it's ready to bind. This just needs to get cut in half twice to get our rough book block size, and then it's bound, trimmed, and it's finished. That is an advantage compared to offset printed perfect bound books because their signatures are going to have to be folded and then gathered before the binding. So that's an added cost, which is why for short run, digital is the way to go. So a lot of people have asked me, how do you print so many things on a digital press and be competitive? Why aren't you printing stuff on an offset press? And there are many reasons, and this is a very loaded question, and I don't know how to approach it and completely do it justice because it's basically going to be on a case-by-case basis. There are so many factors taken into consideration. Book size, print quantity, color, black and white, binding type, location in the country of my customer. There are so many things that I need to all weigh out to make sure that a good decision gets made. Take this book for example. This customer needed books very quickly, but also wanted to take advantage of the cost savings of long-run offset printing. So what I did was I printed a few hundred books in-house digitally right here and look very comparable to the offset printed version that several thousand were printed to get a better price, but it took longer. So these were printed digitally in just a few days to make sure we had books on the shelf, and then the remainder was printed offset for cost savings reasons, but that took several weeks, maybe 4 or 5 weeks. So sometimes we'll split a book like this and run it on different machines just because of the application. I do think it is fascinating how on a well-maintained digital press, how similar the print is. I mean, it's certainly different. Don't get me wrong. I can tell the difference between something that's printed on a toner-based press or an offset press, but it's not that different. So talking about digital and offset, I have toner-based digital presses. You can also get liquid toner through HP Indigo, but you also can't forget inkjet now. Inkjet back in the day, it was garbage as far as I was concerned. It's for very low cost, very high quantity, and low quality. But my boys in Japan, they did it. The KM1, man, the quality on that doesn't even look like inkjet. I mean, there are no lines. Now, granted, they made sure this stuff all looked really good before they handed them out. But that, my friend, is something that I would happily sell my customer, not like the other inkjet that I've seen. Those machines are really expensive, so it really doesn't make sense for me. And I haven't closely crunched the numbers, but for me, I'd rather have a couple small, cheaper machines that have really good quality, because the quality coming off, the 3070 looks good just like that. So, but I just wanted to mention inkjet is still a player, and that's going to become more relevant as time goes on. I forgot to mention, the reason I would spring for a KM1 though is the sheet size. And for me, that would be huge, because if I can do a large sheet size like that, I will be able to fold signatures and utilize mechanically sewn book bindings like Smythe sewing. And I could also print larger quantities of softcover books that would be folded into signatures and finished on different equipment. The downside is you get a large format inkjet press like this, and you're going to have to retool all your finishing to accommodate it. You don't have to, but you might want to. Okay, I'm sorry if this video is all over the place and doesn't quite make sense. I kind of struggled on nailing the topic down, and I wanted to try and answer everybody's questions at one time, but I can see it is not going to happen. So, well, we'll just make other videos. So, when to outsource or when to do it in-house, and that question is like every other question in your entire life. That can be really simple answer or really complex. Either one, you can make it either way, but we really need to understand all the complexities before you can just simply look at it. So estimating, for me, I really enjoy estimating. It's fun. It's a challenge to ultimately make everybody happy. Your customer needs to be happy, and you need to be happy. I mean, you don't want to take advantage of either party, and you just want happy customer, happy printer. So if you want some good reading material, Print Estimating. Although this book is aged quite a bit. That was a book that I got in my print estimating classes in college. Makes for some interesting reading if you're weird like me. It's a good thing too, if you're learning estimating, to start practicing on paper. So just write out all the parts of the job, which I'm going to do right here. But I don't do that for every job now. I use some sort of a spreadsheet. Spreadsheets are free. You can use Google Sheets or something like OpenOffice. Don't even bother buying Microsoft Office anymore. It's just not even worth it. And all the Google Sheets you can access from any computer then. So I'm going to do another video about how I build a spreadsheet to estimate for more complex jobs like booklets or books, things with different types of bindings and things like that. But that's a lot of fun too, but that's going to be a couple of videos, so we'll save that for another time. But the best way to learn is to do it on paper, and still for large or unique jobs, I'll quote it using a spreadsheet, but then I often like to work it out on paper too, just to see, where I might be doing something wrong. I like to break my estimating down into really simple parts. Paper, clicks, finishing, we put some time in there, and then your profit. So that's basically what you need to look at. And once you hone that, and if you're learning to follow up afterwards, actually record the time necessary to take and double check things to make sure that you're not hurting yourself or taking advantage of a customer. And when you're done quoting, compare your quotes to your competitors, either locally or online with other people, and see if you're way high or way low. But don't lower your quote to try and meet your competition without understanding it, because you don't know if your competition, maybe his brother-in-law works at the paper mill and he gets paper for half price. There's wild cards in there. You don't want to just lower it and give a price that your competitor is doing, because that's a good way to put yourself out of business. Okay, the first thing we're going to figure out is how many press sheets we're going to need. So we take our page count, 88 pages, divided by 8 pages per press sheet. This is going to get printed 4 up, 1, 2, 3, 4. But we have a second side, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8 pages per press sheet. Multiply by the total number of books you need is going to give you the number of sheets. So then to figure out our paper costs, we take our total number of sheets, 11,000 sheets, times the cost per sheet. 275 is our paper costs. So very simply then, we can get our click cost, which is simply going to be double the paper since it's printed on both sides. Okay, since this is printed double-sided, you take your total number of sheets times 2, and that's going to give you the number of clicks. Then you multiply that by what you're going to be charging for a click, and you get your total click cost. Now, for me, this number is kind of on a sliding scale. For really small jobs, my click cost goes up. And for a large job of, tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of sheets or clicks, that number is going to get smaller and smaller because you don't need to make as much per click. Next, just to keep it simple, we need 1,000 covers. I've calculated that the click, the paper, the laminate, going to cost me 50 cents. Again, this is on a sliding scale. If it's a short run, it's going to be a little bit more. If it's a lot of books that I'm printing, it's going to be higher. So for this job, I need $500 to produce the covers. So the next thing is a basic BHR for the printing of the book. Now I need to make another video on calculating a BHR, a budgeted hourly rate for your equipment, because that's another thing that can be extremely complex or very simple. I like to try and keep things as simple as possible, but it's going to take 4 hours to print. My BHR on that press is really low because I don't need to be there. And that's another reason that digital outshines an offset press, is the press will run unattended. So your labor costs are really low on that press. For this job, $100. So another thing that I charge on all jobs is some sort of setup. Here I combine the setup and the cost of boxing up all of these books. There's probably going to be about 15, 16 boxes to box all these books up. But my setup, which is $60, that's going to cover pre-press, imposition, all the time associated with that, but also setup of the equipment. Now, the equipment that I use is automatically set up, so there's very little setup time. 3-knife trimming is really, 2 clicks of a button, and, I have about 30 seconds to a minute of setup time on the perfect binder. On a good day, sometimes it's worse, so you need to account for that. But you need to have some sort of a setup time, and that's the reason that if somebody wants one copy, it's really expensive, because there's that setup cost, and it's only spread out on one copy there. Whereas if you're ordering 1,000 books, that setup cost gets divided out over 1,000 books. So it really helps out to print more. Okay, so the last thing that needs to be done for these books to be finished is binding. And this too, like most of the other things, is kind of on a sliding scale. Within this binding number is a setup cost. That's just how I generate the quote. But then there's a cost per book, and then ultimately, though, your binding price is going to be determined by how fast your equipment runs. So that's going to be different for everybody. So you can't really just use all this information for yourself. You're going to have to figure it out on your own. Okay, so when you add all that up, you get the total cost to produce this in-house. Now, I double checked to see what it would cost for another printing company to do it digitally, and it would cost me $2,060. To run this offset, it would cost me $1,935. So my cost to produce in-house is going to be less than those. Now, you also have to remember that you're going to add profit to this. Again, it's going to differ for different jobs, and also, sometimes if it's a job that you really want to get, you're going to lower your profit on it and make sure you win that job. If it's a job that you know is going to be a real headache and you don't want to do it, you're going to charge a little more profit so it's worth your time. Nothing's more annoying than printing a job and not making a lot of money and not enjoying yourself. So, everybody's different, but somewhere between 40 and 60% profit on top of that. And then that would be what you charge your customer. So this job I decided to do in-house, but it depends too, because if I was busy and I didn't have time to get it done in that amount of time, I might have outsourced it, even though it would take a little bit longer. If I was busy printing other jobs and I didn't have time, I can outsource it. So outsourcing is not necessarily just to save money. It can also be used to save time, and it can also be used to obtain a better quality than you can do in-house. So it's kind of a juggling act between time, money, and quality. So hopefully that was useful to somebody. I get excited about estimating. I think it's a lot of fun, and it dramatically impacts a business. It's very important that estimates are done correctly and as good as possible, because if you just shoot high all the time, you might lose some jobs, and if you undercut yourself, you're going to certainly hurt yourself too. So you need to balance everything as good as possible. But please let me know if I missed anything too. There's just way too much stuff to cover, and everybody estimates a little bit differently, so it's going to be, there's a million different ways to do it, but that's just the way I do it. Also, let me know what else you guys want to learn. If it's something about a piece of machinery that I have or a different process, put it in the comments of what you want to learn next, and I'll do my best to answer it. If I don't have an answer for you, I'll just make something up, Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.